All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jonathan LeBlanc. I head up global developer advocacy for PayPal and Braintree. And one of the areas that we see as a major disruption point going forward, not only in just the technology realm, but as we're diving into payments or securing people's identity, is the fact that the identity sources that we have for human beings, while technology has improved, they really have not. They're an area that is just absolutely ripe for disruption, especially when you're dealing with a lot of secured information, like what we do in the payment sphere. Now, I can't guarantee that this talk won't get a little creepy because we are going into embeddables. We are also going to take a look at some new areas of ingestibles. So my apologies, it is going to get creepy. So just let's go for it. All right, so what's really, when you're looking at identity sources, the question that always comes up is, why do we even need this, right? Passwords are awesome. Passwords that never get hacked and never get leaked out, right? And everyone always uses the proper utilities and picks incredibly secure passwords. That happens all the time. Well, we can secure systems. We can do location-based checks to make sure that hey, this person that usually logs in from Utah is now not a Nigerian prince that's trying to steal your information. That you're actually doing device fingerprinting on mobile devices. If you're using that, you're actually doing browser fingerprinting. Every single mechanism that we can think of and that we implement within, let's say, the payment sphere or anything that's around that area, we do it. But the real problem is not on the technology in and of itself, for the most part. When you're actually looking at, some hack attempts, yeah, sure, the companies did screw up. But when you're looking at the vast majority of the technology out there, it's very secure. The problem is that human element. These are the top 20 passwords of 2014. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. See, that person or that group of people thought that they were being clever and secure and not using all the way to 0, like number 13. And as you can see from some hack attempts, number 10 and number 15, Adobe had a little bit of leaked information, so that's where these passwords come from. But realistically, top passwords represents a significant number of people. So look at these statistics. Almost 5% of people use password, or almost 10% of people use password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or all the way to 8. As we're going down the line, if you go to the top 1,000 passwords, that represents 91% of the overall users that have had their passwords leaked. Staggering number. Now let's look at the top 10,000 passwords. That represents 99.8% of the passwords that were leaked in these hack attempts. So yeah, we know exactly where the problem is. When I was a kid, this is what wearable tech was supposed to be. You guys all remember the Power Glove? Yeah, Power Glove was awesome. Wearing this device and being able to control the Nintendo, we thought of it as the future point of being able to control the world around you. I remember I grew up near Montreal, and when I was a kid, 3D technology was starting to come out with glasses, and we went to the CN Tower one time when I was probably like 9, and I saw this 3D gaming center. I thought this would be so cool, an alternate life, going and seeing this, playing games in this alternate world. And then you see it's just these straight lines around. It's red and very disorienting, make you want to throw up. It was just horrible. But it's taken 25 years in order for this technology to start coming back into the wearable world, where some of this technology is viable again. And when you're talking about it in the identity sphere, and we're playing off of devices that you already use, mobile devices, wearable devices, trackers, anything like that, it fits perfectly to start talking about identity again in this. Now, the one identity source that we typically look at is fingerprinting. It's been around for a while. The courts use it. You have some mobile devices that are starting to integrate it. It's a nice, easy mechanism for us to feel comfortable with using, right? But when you're really looking at fingerprinting, it's just a bare minimum source, and it's really not the most secure source. The false acceptance rate on fingerprinting is about 1 in 100,000 people. So when you're using it alongside other mechanisms like device fingerprinting, the hardware fingerprint, or location-based tracking, it works out so that you can actually uniquely identify a person. But, that false acceptance rate is one that is paramount when you're looking at new wearable technologies and identity. There's two numbers that you should always look at when you're looking at an identity source: false acceptance rate and false rejection rate. False rejection rate's not that bad. It's basically saying when you scan your biometrics or your identity source or what have you, sometimes it might not pick it up. And you're scanning your fingerprint, you might have to scan again. It costs you a couple of seconds. It's not really that bad when you look at it. That false acceptance rate is really the big one that we have to look at, and the one that's going to cause us the most problems. Because realistically, that's going to allow people who aren't valid users into the system. We want to avoid that if at all possible, and that's why we need better biometric sources in order to do that. Because we all know that users will think of the most common password, the easiest thing for them to remember, and utilize it in every single one of their accounts. So we want to avoid this. Now, within the payment sphere, some of the interesting things that we've been playing with and working with as far as startups and companies are things like vein recognition biometrics. This is kind of cool. Because realistically, what you're going to get is putting your palm down on a surface and it being able to use an alternative light source to measure the blood flow through your hands. So it's basically vein uniqueness with blood flow. Since it's measuring blood flow, it can also, if you have dirt on your hands or you have small cuts, it won't matter because it's measuring blood flow. Now, if you watch way too many spy films like me, you are thinking, well, what if they cut off their hand and use it all over the place, right? And if you're thinking about that and laughing, you're probably as bad of a person as me, but you're in the right place. This is the right talk for you. So realistically, it is measuring blood flow, and oddly enough, one of these startups, the startup that created this little puppy here, Quickster, they post on their site, one of the mechanisms for security for them is if you do exactly that, it measures blood flow. Since there's no blood flow, yeah, it doesn't work. So it's a security mechanism, I suppose. But realistically, when you start looking at this is the first breadth of technology that we have within vein biometrics. And alternative light sources are being used from everything from heart rate monitoring to this payment sphere. So it's very interesting to see what's coming out along that. And its false acceptance rate is probably around 0.0001%, so it's relatively low. But with the studies right now, a lot of them are kind of all over the place. So, if you have enough money to pay for your own study, and with your own device, you can make it say whatever. But realistically, a lot of these independent studies have given it around that range as the worst possible scenario. So I always pick the worst possible scenario when I'm looking at false acceptance rate. So then let's go on to another cool one. There's this company called BioName based out of Toronto. They're creating basically a small little EKG meter called the NIMI that sits on your wrist. And what it does is it's going to use a unique pattern of your unique EKG pattern in order to uniquely identify it. So after talking with a few of their advocates, they were saying, well, yes, you can actually determine a unique pattern in someone's EKG, even under duress, even under, if you've just come back from the gym or something like that, an increased heart rate. It's a learning system, so it gets better over time. So they're utilizing that to be an identity source for these wearables. And really what it comes down to is the wearables that tend to succeed are the ones that fit inside the cultural norm. And cultural norms are, it's the same reason why people had a lot of problems with Google Glass, because it was sitting outside of a cultural norm. Armband technology, wristband technology, a lot of the wearables that are coming out now that fit into that cultural norm are really the ones that are going to succeed. Now, a lot of the problems right now are a lot of the identity sources that we're using on, let's say, the development side, when you're actually trying to use these for building into a project or linking to a subsystem, a different computer, is that the identity sources all have their own ways of working, their own identity, their own mechanism. But there's one group, one that we at PayPal work on the board of, as well as Google and a large number of banks, financial institutions, etc., called FIDO Alliance. FIDO Alliance is all about the death of passwords and utilizing a whole bunch of different biometrics mechanisms in order to have a streamlined identity. And they try to open up have a simplified specification for actually determining the identity of a person. So biometrics, whether it be vein recognition biometrics, wearable computers, or heart rate identity, these are all mechanisms that can be tied into something like the FIDO Alliance. So groups like these are becoming more and more important when you're getting into the biometric sphere, because realistically, wearables are right now the wild west of technology. Everyone's building a whole bunch of different proprietary approaches, a whole bunch of different approaches to identity, and this is trying to make them nice and streamlined. Okay, I said we get into the creepy, and let's get into the creepy. Yeah, okay, this is the fun stuff. This is where we're looking at a lot of the future technology that's coming out. And realistically, a lot of the identity technology that's going to be employed in the days of tomorrow is coming from the medical field right now. It's quite amazing how they're leading the charge on a lot of this technology. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of that medical tech and how it can apply into the identity world. Brain chip implants. Okay, so there was a study that I had just read, a study that I had just read about some work going on with specifically this, brain chip implants. And so what they were doing is they had someone who was a paraplegic. They were able to have a brain chip implant to measure brain waves. And what they did is they took a deceased mouse brain, put it inside a robot, and using thought patterns, they were able to control mechanisms of the robot. Okay, so very cool piece of technology in and of itself. But let's look at this a little bit differently in the identity sphere. If you're measuring thought patterns, think of the future of identification on that source. You walk up to your computer and go to unlock it, and what happens is you're thinking, I'm thinking of a memory back when I was a child, and that's my unlock code. Brain patterns directly to laptop. Amazing piece of identity, and something that really no one can have because it's a memory. So that's interesting. Now, I apologize for this image. There's also elements of biohacking that are definitely leading some mechanisms within embeddable tech and within the technology sphere of tomorrow. So what biohacking companies like Dangerous Things are doing are they allow you to embed NFC tags and RFID tags directly under the skin, and you can walk around and unlock computers, unlock doors, and things like that using that. So kind of embedded technology underneath the skin is been done for a number of years, and the biggest problem is that on the site they sell scalpels, sutures, and tourniquets to go along with that, and it's a do-it-yourself project. but that's creepy, and no one will do that. It's a very small subset of people. So where we have to get is through the medical fields. They are leading that charge because they're building out these norms. Okay, the last one. Ingestible technology. This is one that's just starting to be worked on, and just like the medical field, this is what's being used with ingestible technology right now. You have things like glucose detection for diabetics. You have digestive health. Having a little camera that goes straight through your entire digestive system and being able to determine any problems along the way that a doctor can watch. But those things can be applied a little bit differently as well, and there's some technology coming out that can use that. So daily ID chips, for instance, being able to embed RFID little tags or Wi-Fi sensors directly in there. So you walk into work, throw a pill down, and that's your ID for the day. I think there's something pleasant about that notion, because let's say you just dislike your job. It's something pleasant about being able to pass out that pill as a kind of a FU at the end of the day. I don't know. I guess that's just my thought. But there's actually good, interesting tech going on around this. Proteus Digital Health is one company that is actually working on this. They have tiny little sensors embedded with a little capsule. So you swallow the capsule down, it hits stomach acid, and it's like a little potato battery. The stomach acid will trigger the potato battery and start utilizing every mechanism of your body as the identity source. So you can read unique readings from these devices that you have swallowed, which will eventually, fall apart. And that is the mechanism that they're using for identifying a body source. And so ingestible technology is being worked on. It's being looked at in the medical field. So, I mean, there are a lot of studies going on around that. So that's another area that you'll be looking at in the future. But speaking of which, where we're really getting to right now is that medical technology is leading a lot of this, but we look at it in the payment sphere because at the same time we have to try to secure users as much as possible, secure users' information, their payment details, secure their identity sources, their addresses, and all of that information. So we have a vested interest in a lot of the future of this tech. But realistically, the ones that will succeed, whether it's embeddable, ingestible, injectable, or what have you, are the ones that are going to play into cultural norms, the ones that are going to meet the demands of the populace overall, of all the people around, and not be creepy. So even though they seem creepy at the current time, the future are going to be the ones that hit those cultural norms. So thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate your attention.